$1 today feels useless, but back then it could change how people treated you. In 1331, inns charged separately for food, drink, beds, and neighbors watched every choice you made in public. So when you stepped into a medieval bazaar with $1, what power did that coin really hold? And why did it matter so much? Let's see. So what does one medieval dollar even look like? Imagine walking into a packed market holding one coin that stands for a full day of hard work. In that moment, you feel wealthy and poor together. Across much of 13th to 14th century England, a basic laborer earns about 2 pennies for one day's work, adding up to roughly 480 pennies in a year. Historians often use that daily pay as a simple measure of buying power. So our one medieval dollar equals those same 2 pennies. Lists from the 14th century show how quickly that coin disappears. At an inn in 1331, bread for a group costs 4 pence, beer costs 2, meat reaches 5.5, and beds for the night add another 2. Elsewhere, a gallon of ale sells for about half a penny, 10 candles cost 1 penny, and a large cheese can reach 6. Food and drink stay under tight local control. Town leaders fix prices for bread and ale so people survive when grain prices jump. Cloth, tools, and small comforts climb much higher because weaving, carving, and metalwork eat time and strength. So your dollar feels generous next to a loaf of bread, yet weak beside anything woven or forged. That feeling follows you straight to the stall selling headscarves. That is where a plain linen headscarf quietly appears. Linen headscarf, 1 coin for modesty, faith, and comfort. A single square of linen looks plain on the table. Once it rests on a woman's head, it shapes how the whole street judges her. Across Christian Europe, church rules and local custom push married women to cover their hair in public, most often with linen veils, wimples, or headscarves. The cloth stays cool in summer, guards against sun and smoke, and shows that the woman follows shared rules. Linen takes real work. Flax must be retted, broken, combed, spun, woven, then cut and hemmed. That effort means even a simple headscarf costs more than a day's bread. Yet a small, undecorated veil can sit close to one day's wage in many towns, especially when bought second-hand. Historians comparing cloth prices and wage records show plain linen stays within reach of working families, while fine dyed cloth jumps into several days of pay. For a woman walking to market, church, and fields, this single purchase blocks gossip, sunburn, and cold ears. It also survives far longer than a bowl of stew or a mug of ale. That is why the next coin often slides toward thicker wool on the same stall. Wool shawl, turning a day's pay into real warmth. Cold stone churches and drafty houses bite harder than any imagined battle. One rectangle of wool softens that daily discomfort. Medieval Europe runs on wool. English and Flemish regions ship huge amounts of wool and cloth across the Channel, and town governments tax it heavily because demand never fades. For ordinary people, a small, coarse wool shawl or shoulder wrap brings daily relief, warming the body in church, on the road, or over a thin dress while cooking outside. Good wool cloth demands skilled spinning and weaving, which means a new shawl often costs more than our single dollar. In markets, though, remnants, narrow pieces, and second-hand wraps drop into day-wage range, especially near winter's end when people sell older goods to buy grain. Frayed edges still trap heat. With 1 coin, you trade a day of labor for many nights with less shaking and fewer sick days. You also gain color and texture that make you appear less poor than you feel. From cloth that hugs the body, attention shifts to small tools touching hair and skin. Wooden comb, cheap little object with heavy social pressure. A wooden comb looks harmless on a stall. In a crowded town, it controls shame, itching, and talk all at once. Archaeologists keep finding combs in medieval rubbish pits, graves, and house layers, showing how common they were in daily life. Lice thrive where people share beds, cloaks, and hats. So a fine-toothed comb becomes a quiet health tool as well as a grooming aid. Your dollar stretches easily here. A simple comb carved from boxwood or bone costs far less than clothing, because it needs only a small piece of material and one carver's time. Lists of everyday goods for peasants and townsfolk mention combs alongside cups, candles, and baskets as realistic purchases. For a woman keeping long hair under a veil, this tool reduces knots, limits lice, and helps her show neat braids at home. For a man, it signals basic self-respect in a tavern. One coin for a comb often feels wiser than another cup of ale. From hair and skin, the careful buyer starts thinking about clothing that lasts one more winter. Sewing needles and thread, the tiny kit that saves a wardrobe. One broken seam can ruin a dress. One small kit can delay replacement for years. Most medieval homes rely on constant mending. New clothes cost real money, so families patch, darn, and restitch sleeves, hems, and hose. Historians rebuilding shopping habits from wage and price records show how repairs stretch garments far beyond modern habits. Your dollar buys a few iron or brass needles with strong linen thread or wool yarn, often sold wrapped on a small stick. Each needle holds the work of smelting and forging, yet its size keeps the price within reach for laborers. Once owned, the kit works through dozens of small disasters, from torn tunics to loose shoe uppers. For women carrying the quiet task of keeping everyone clothed, this purchase multiplies value. Instead of buying new shirts, families keep patching old ones while saved coins go to grain or rent. After protecting clothes, a practical mind turns toward guarding water, ale, and milk. Clay water jug, buying a piece of everyday health. Water sits behind every medieval day, and a good jug decides how safely it reaches the table. Markets across Europe show rows of pottery, jugs, bowls, pitchers, and storage jars stacked beside meat, cloth, and fruit. Clay comes from nearby pits, shaped and fired in kilns that often serve whole regions. The result breaks easily, yet costs far less than metal. A basic clay jug with a handle and narrow neck lands close to a day's wage. One coin buys a vessel carrying ale from brewery to home, milk from stall to table, or water from well to hearth. In towns where wells sit near waste, the jug's neck and lid help keep out dust and insects, lowering risk slightly. Breakage always threatens. That danger keeps potters busy and explains why broken shards fill archaeological layers. One coin fixes today's cracked jug and restores daily meals. Once carrying food and drink feels secure, thoughts move to hauling everything home. Woven market basket, the shopping tool every household needs. Picture carrying grain, onions, eggs, and candles through a packed street with bare hands. One woven basket restores order. Sources describing daily life list baskets alongside candles, cloth, and cups as basic household tools. Basket weaving demands real effort. Willow, hazel, or straw must be cut, soaked, split, and woven into shapes strong enough for fish or grain. A medium basket often costs around a day's pay in rural areas, more in cities where materials travel farther. In return, you gain a tool used for years. It carries vegetables today, laundry tomorrow, and firewood after that. It frees children's hands and spares a woman's back during market trips. A careful buyer checks tight weaving, solid handles, and a flat base, because that single choice shapes hundreds of future walks. Once carrying and storage feel settled, attention turns to keeping bodies and clothes acceptable. Laundry soap, one coin that changes how clean you seem. You may wear one dress for years, but people still judge its smell. Soap softens that judgment. Medieval soap comes from animal fat mixed with ash lye, shaped into rough bars or paste. Town records and household accounts list soap beside candles and fuel as regular costs of staying decent. Places like Marseille later gain fame for better soap, while local makers supply most markets. For about a day's wage, a working family buys enough low-grade soap to wash clothes and linen several times, especially when paired with soaking and beating in rivers or tubs. Clean shirts and veils cut lice, calm skin, and shift how employers, priests, and neighbors respond. In tight homes, washed bedding feels rare. Soap stings hands and demands long wash days, usually carried by women. That coin buys acceptance more than comfort. After cleaning cloth and skin, families faced the costliest enemy of all, darkness. Tallow candles, paying for light, time, and nightly safety. When the sun sets, work should end. A few candles push back. Medieval price lists show how candles drain small budgets. One 15th century English list gives 10 tallow candles for 1 penny, while inn accounts from 1331 list candles beside bread, beer, meat, and beds. With a 2-penny dollar, you might leave with 20 plain candles. Tallow comes from animal fat, carrying a smoky flame and strong smell. These candles still matter. They let tailors and weavers work after dusk, give women light for spinning and mending, and add safety on stairs and in courtyards. In winter, 1 extra hour of light shifts both mood and output. Households stretch them carefully, trimming wicks, snuffing flames early, and grouping tasks together. Each stub left behind feels like silver fading into smoke. Once light and warmth feel covered, spare coins drift toward visible signs of self-worth. Leather belts and bead necklaces, when 1 coin buys status. A belt or necklace never fills a pot, yet it reshapes how others see you. Across many regions, simple leather belts hold tunics, pouches, and knives, while marking gender and rank through width and buckle style. Plain leather and base metal fittings keep some belts within a day laborer's reach, while decorated versions jump into several days of pay. Bead necklaces made from glass or cheap metal add color to plain wool or linen. Guides to medieval daily life describe belts, jewelry, and trims as small ways non-elites claim beauty inside strict dress rules. 1 coin buys identity, a first necklace, a better feast day belt, or a widow's effort to appear respectable enough to rent a room. The quiet truth of that medieval dollar is clear. Every choice in the bazaar decides whether a day's labor turns into warmth, food, light, modesty, or standing. Now you've seen how 1 small coin controlled survival, respect, and fear. That secret opens many more stories. Click the next video because history keeps whispering truths you were never taught.